Hey guys, this is a computer that I worked on. I was passing out some flyers in my area and I got a couple of customers. This is one of them. This guy brought this computer in and he was saying it wouldn't power up. I usually don't videotape these things when I'm fixing a computer, but I had to show you guys this. This is the power supply I took from the case. I tested it; it works, but it's one of these generic, no-name brands. It usually has a history of messing up motherboards. So this worked. So this wasn't a problem. It powers up. So I ruled out the power supply and started checking everything else. See, this case was so full of dust and as you guys could see that all around the caps. Also checked the caps to see if any of them burst or were bulging. They were fine. Took the processor out, tested it on another motherboard. It worked. Uh, the memory here also full of dust. Took those, cleaned them up, and tried them on another board, and they worked fine. Hard drive also was good. This is an HP Pavilion AM2, and I worked on a case similar to this before. The thing that I did with the other ones, I cleaned it up. I took the motherboard tray out and reinstalled it, and then it started working. It was a short on the motherboard, and I was hoping that the same thing was the same thing. Uh, that this was the same issue that was going on with this, but it turned out to be something else. Here's the processor. It's an AM2 AMD, and this worked. I didn't have any problems with it. I So the next step was to clean this whole thing. It was just so full of dust. So what I did is I set up some lighting outside my garage, as you'll see in a second here, and I used an air compressor to blow all the dust outside of my garage. I didn't want to do this inside because, as you guys can see, a lot of dust flying around. Luckily, I don't have a lot of neighbors around, so the compressor making all the noise and the lighting didn't, wasn't a problem. So did this outside, and there was a lot of dust. Took me, I think, about an hour or so, less than an hour to clean this up. And I used some rubbing alcohol also to clean the inside of the case, the chassis. You'll see that in a minute. And I was kind of hoping that, by doing this, that and then later taking the motherboard tray off and then reinstalling it would somehow fix the problem. I checked everything, checked the caps once I cleaned it up, just to make sure that none of them were burst or were damaged. Also looked at the battery to see if maybe that was the problem. It wasn't. Here's the case, nice and cleaned. Also wanted to do mod some things on this, but the guy wasn't going to pay me more than just to fix it, plus the parts that I might need. Here's the tray, nice and cleaned. I used some swabs to clean between the caps, reinstalled the memory, and all I need to do is install the processor and a heatsink. Now the heatsink was full of dust, inside, those lines inside. Not that one. That's a brand new stock cooler. And the reason why I used that one, the one that came with this motherboard was just so dirty that it was just it was going to take too long to clean up. Usually when I clean one of these things, I use alcohol, dump it in there, the heat sink, not the fan, but the heat sink itself to clean it up. But it was just going to take too long, and I just decided to use the one that I had already. And I gave him a new one. Here's the Asus heatsink. You can see it there, but it was full of dust and grime. It's just awful. And once I did that, I tested it and didn't power up. So next up was getting the new parts. Here we have the Asus motherboard. It's as closest to what this guy had before. It's an M4A7 M4A7 785/M AM plus, and it comes with what's that? The unlocking the cores. Tried it. His processor obviously you know, didn't wasn't gonna need. I mean, didn't let me use any extra cores. Here we have the ID cables, SATA cables, manual CD drives with the case badge. Now, we could have gone with a newer motherboard, but guy didn't want to spend a lot of money, so I think the total that he spent was close to $160, and for the motherboard and the power supply. The motherboard is a standard. It's not like one of the new ones that's out there with a SATA 6 or USB 3.0s. So, but it was good enough for the stuff that he wanted to do. Mostly home entertainment and office. Here, I was going to take all the memory, the heatsink, and the processor and install it on the new motherboard. It was frustrating not getting this thing to work, but that's the reason I told him to get the a new power supply. The one that he had was a 350 watt crap power supply. So I told him go with a Cooler Master 500 watt. Better be safe than sorry. So let me show you a little bit of the motherboard here. You got a PCI Express slot, standard PCIs, two of them. You got a small Express slot there, and it's a nice looking motherboard. It has an old ID connector, 24 pins, standard SATA, and also has solid caps and standard caps. What else? Oh, it also comes with HDMI connector, HDMI right there. You have your DVI. Also comes with 6 USB 2.0s, audio, and obviously your LAN there. It's not a bad motherboard actually, as long as you don't use it for gaming. And it's I think I already mentioned it's oh, there's your 4-pin power, CPU power, and USB headers. You got 3 of them, and yeah, it's a nice little motherboard. Uh, So I told him, like I said before, get the new power supply for this motherboard instead of using the old one. Oh, this is another thing that I did. I had this thing. It's a heatsink for the memory. I also put a small little fan, cooler master fan there. I mean, I try to get all these little extra parts that I have. I try to get rid of them. This was a good way to get rid of this one, and looks pretty nice in his case. The only thing that he probably won't see it because it's going to be covered. Airflow on an old case like this, and well, it's not an old case, but actually he bought this 3 years ago. I don't know if I mentioned it. He paid like $900. It's a combo. You got a printer, monitor, but geez, this is one of the reasons why you don't buy retail. Uh, hard drive was fine. The only issue that I thought I was going to have was with the drivers with the new motherboard. I didn't know it was going to take, but I didn't have any problems there. Uh, he didn't have his original restore CD, so it was touch and go. I wasn't sure if it was going to work with the new drives, but it did. I don't remember how many. I think it was like 250 gigs. I'm not quite sure. Here's the power supply. It's a Cooler Master 500 watt power supply, and here's the old generic 350 watt for a $900 system. This is what you get when you go retail. So I got let's see here, installed everything in the case. So all I needed to do here is power it up, and so you guys can see it works fine. Um, Went into BIOS, and it worked. So this is probably the only video you'll see of me that I'll put on my YouTube account that fixing a computer. I usually don't do this, but I just wanted to show you how bad that was and how much this guy paid for something like this. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Please subscribe if you like this video. Bye.